Hey everyone, welcome back, ready to dive deep into another fascinating topic.
Absolutely excited to be back.
Today we're tackling the world of XR and UX, with UX for XR by Cornel Hillmann. This book's your guide to designing truly awesome experiences for virtual and augmented reality. It's for anyone who's ready to move past just the wow factor and really get into the nuts and bolts of building something incredible.
Totally.
And the cool thing is, Hillman jumps right in, taking us on this whirlwind tour of XR history.
Yeah, and it's important, right? Got to know where you've been to see where you're going.
Exactly. I mean, remember Palmer Luckey and the whole Oculus Rift thing? Talk
Ah,
about a game changer.
yeah, that definitely shook things up.
And then that whole Facebook acquisition?
Definitely got people talking. It brought up all these questions about the future of VR, ownership, data privacy.
For sure. And it's fascinating how Hillman weaves these big moments together with these smaller but still super important details. And that takes us right back to UX design, which is where this book shines. It's not just about making the tech work, it's about making it work for people.
100%. Just like back in the day with the whole mobile revolution.
Right. Back then, it wasn't just about having a phone that could make calls.
It was about making those calls easy, that interface, intuitive. The whole experience had to be good.
Exactly. And that's what's so important with XR. We're designing for human beings.
Hmm.
We have to understand how people experience their environment, especially when that environment is, virtual or augmented.
Totally. Hillman really nails it when he talks about finding that sweet spot, making things feel natural and intuitive while still taking advantage of all this cool new tech.
I love that idea he has about designing for reality.plus superpowers.
Yeah.
You want it to feel familiar, but with that extra bit of awesome that only XR can deliver.
Right. Like think about object manipulation in VR. In the real world, you pick something up, you put it down. But in VR, the possibilities are endless. You can make it levitate, resize it with a gesture. You can even teleport it across the room.
It's like giving users those familiar actions, but with this expanded toolkit, these digital superpowers.
And that, my friend, is where the real fun begins. But of course,
With great power.
comes great responsibility for the designer.
And speaking of responsibility, that leads us to our next big topic. Hillman brings up this concept called the OODA loop, which I know our listeners are going to find super valuable.
Oh yeah, the OODA loop. It's actually a really simple idea, but it has huge implications for how we design in XR.
All right, so for those hearing it for the first time, what exactly is the OODA loop? Give us the breakdown.
You got it. So OODA stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, Act.
Observe, orient, decide, act. Got it. But how does that play into XR design? I'm not seeing it yet.
Okay, so think of it like this. When someone puts on a VR headset or steps into an augmented environment for the first time, their brain basically goes into overdrive. It's hit with all this new sensory information, and it needs a way to make sense of it all. That's where the OODA loop comes in.
So you're saying that if a designer can understand this loop, they can create a smoother, more enjoyable experience.
Exactly. Think about it. When you walk into a crowded room, you don't just start interacting with the first thing you see, right? First, you
Hmm.
observe the room, you see who's there, what they're doing, and get a feel for the overall vibe.
And then you orient yourself.
Yeah.
Where are the exits? Who do I recognize? Things like that.
Precisely. Based on those observations, you start making decisions about how you're going to interact with that space. And then you act.
Okay, I'm starting to see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
So when we apply that to XR, are you saying that each of those steps needs to be carefully considered?
Exactly. What will the user see and experience in those first few moments? Will they feel oriented, or will they be completely lost? How intuitive are the controls? Can they easily figure out how to interact with the virtual world? These are all critical questions that we as designers need to be asking. If even one part of that OODA loop is clunky or confusing, the entire experience can fall apart.
So it's all about reducing that cognitive load, making it as easy as possible for the user to process all this new information and just enjoy the experience.
Exactly. And you know what? When you get it right, when that OODA loop is firing on all cylinders,
That's when the magic happens. And that takes us right to one of the juicy parts of XR design. Thinking about those three-dimensional spaces. Because, well, it's not just about making things look cool in 3D.
right, it's a whole different ball game when it comes to how people actually experience things.
Totally. Like, how do we move beyond the mouse and keyboard? How do we make those interactions in the XR space feel as natural as, reaching out and grabbing a cup of coffee? And Hillman gives those really clear examples in the book. Like, he talks about the importance of comfort zones in VR.
Oh, yeah. Comfort zones are key.
In the real world, You wouldn't expect to have to, like, climb a ladder to reach a light switch.
Right.
So, same goes for VR.
Mhm.
Those interactive elements, they need to be within a comfortable reach for the user. You don't want to make people feel uncomfortable or strained in the virtual world.
And those little things, like, the long press buttons that you see in VR now.
Oh yeah, the long press.
Simple, but so effective. It gives the user that extra beat to make sure they really want to do something before, they accidentally delete a file or teleport to the wrong location.
It's all about reducing that cognitive load, making it as easy as possible for the user's brain to process everything that's going on.
Exactly. And when you get that right, when you really nail that OODA loop in your design, that's when the magic really starts to happen.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the why behind good XR design. Understanding how people experience these three-dimensional spaces. But what about the how? Like, what are the actual tools people are using to build these experiences?
That's what's so exciting about XR right now. There are tools for every skill level. Whether you're just starting out or you're a total pro, there's something out there for you.
Hillmann talks about Adobe Aero and Spark AR as being super user-friendly, especially for folks who maybe aren't like hardcore coders yet.
Right. They're a great way to get your feet wet.
I mean, imagine being able to create your own augmented reality experiences for social media. So cool.
You can. It's amazing what you can do with these tools. Like with Arrow, you can create these really immersive spatial stories, almost like interactive pop-up books.
Yeah.
And then there's Spark AR, which is perfect for anyone who wants to dive into the world of AR filters and effects.
Right. Those are everywhere these days, it seems like. It's crazy how much they can transform the whole social media experience.
Totally. And honestly, those are just a couple of examples. We could do a whole other deep dive just on stuff like Microsoft's HoloLens and that whole mind-blowing concept of the AR cloud.
Don't tempt me. That stuff is wild. But we do need to wrap up today's deep dive. So for our listeners out there who are ready to jump in and start creating, what would you recommend as a good starting point?
I'd say it depends on what gets you fired up about XR. Like if you're really into that idea of social AR, Arrow's a great place to start. If you're more interested in filters and effects, definitely check out Spark AR. And if you're ready to really dive into those more complex worlds and interactions, well, Unity and Unreal Engine are the industry standard for a reason.
Right. Those are the big dogs. I mean, those are the engines behind some of the most visually stunning games and immersive experiences out there.
For sure. They give you a ton of control and flexibility.
Though I will say there's definitely a bit of a learning curve with those.
Totally. But hey, the best things in life are worth working for, right?
Couldn't agree more. And no matter what tools you end up using, there's this underlying philosophy that Hillmann keeps coming back to that really resonated with me. It's this idea of mindful design.
Oh, yeah. I love that part of the book. It's so important. Like, as XR designers, we're not just pushing pixels around on a screen. We're shaping the way people experience the world. And that comes with a huge responsibility.
Totally. He talks about how these immersive technologies have the potential to impact our lives in all these profound ways, from education to healthcare, entertainment, even just how we connect with each other on a daily basis.
Exactly. And that's why thinking about the ethical implications of our work is more important than ever. It's not enough to just design something cool. We need to be asking those tough questions like, how could this be used? Who might it benefit? And who might it harm?
It's about approaching this incredible technology with a sense of wonder, absolutely, but also with that healthy dose of caution. We have to make sure we're using it to create a better, more equitable future for everyone.
I'm with you 100% on that. It's a conversation we all need to be having.
Well said. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into UX for XR by Cornel Hillmann. We've explored the history, the key design principles, even the tools you can use to start crafting your own amazing XR experiences. So if you're serious about this field, and after listening to this, I hope you are, do yourself a favor and check out this book.
It's a must-read for sure.
It's packed with insights, even more than we had time to cover today. But now, a final thought for you to ponder as you head out into the world, newly equipped with all this XR knowledge. If you could design your ideal XR experience, no limitations, budgets, no object, what would it be? What world would you build? What story would you tell? What problems would you solve? That's something to keep exploring as you continue to learn and grow in this incredible world of extended reality. Thanks for joining us on this journey.